Welcome back. Today we are discussing Teklovossen, the newest hero from Bright Lights, and the one it seems like most people are excited about and also interested in. He is the most unique hero from it. He's got this whole new type of card called Evo. He can transform his equipment throughout the game. I think he's really cool, and he's been the hero I've been putting the most time into. I've played a few dozen games on Talishar. I know that's not a huge sample size, but considering the cards have only been working on Talishar for about 2 days, it's probably the most I can get in there. And I've got two different ways to play the deck. I'm also going to discuss some of the card options for Teklovossen. Neither of these decks are going to be the best Teklovossen deck. They're not going to be the final Teklovossen deck unless I'm just the prophet, because this is very, very early on. The set's not even released for another week. So this is kind of a place to start. Take a look at these. These are what I've been finding success with so far. But by no means think these are the final versions. I would start here and then continue to explore. So Teklovossen, let's just read his hero since he is so new. He says you may play Evos from your Banish Zone. Already a very strong ability. We know heroes like Chain or Living Legend that can play cards from their Banish Zone. And then as an instant, you can pay 3 resources, play your next Evo as it were an instant, and then draw a card. So it does replace the blue you pitched after by drawing the card. And then it lets you play that Evo as an instant. You can play these from your Banish Zone. So your Evos, if they're an action and not an instant, this lets you play them as one. So that's pretty strong as well. It is a bit resource intensive, right? Because not only are you paying the blue for the ability, you're also going to have to pay the blue for the Evo or whatever other cost the Evo has. So pretty resource intensive. And you can see this version we're playing 26 blues. I've seen people go pretty high, 30, 33, 35. I'm not as high as that, but you still need quite a lot of blues because Evos are pretty expensive. But you'll see it's not that hard to include blues in this deck. It's actually quite hard to even fit them in because there's so many good cards you want to play. Now, the base equipment we're running is the Cogworks. The other version is the Teklo, which blade breaks for 1. Those are a bit dangerous because as soon as you lose one equipment piece in this deck, it's basically game over. And then there's the Proto, which are just Cogworks, but worse. So you basically always in Teklo want Cogworks. These are all starting with the Steam counter, and then they have an instant ability where you pay a resource, remove that Steam counter, and then you get some effect if you've boosted that turn. You can only activate it if you've boosted. So they've got this one-time effect, which is pretty nice. A lot of them are quite good. And the main two that are very helpful is Cogworks-based Chest. This just gives you a free resource. You pay a resource and then remove the Steam counter and get 2 resources if you boosted, so you go up 1 resource. And then the legs give you an action point. So just a slightly worse version of like Achilles, which are the classic Mechanologist legs where you destroy them to get the action point. But these actually stick around. You're just trading that resource and Steam counter for an action point, and we have a few ways we can use that as well. So those are pretty good. The head lets you shuffle a Mechanologist attack from your Banish Zone into your deck. That's fine, but I don't know if I've ever activated that. And the arms, you can pay the resource for +1. It's not the best trade, 1 resource for 1 damage. I don't think I've really activated these either, but I almost always activate the chest and the legs. Definitely the chest. I activate this almost every game, and the legs I activate a lot of games. And then the weapon is quite strong when it's fully leveled. It starts out very weak because at the beginning you can't even use it. Once you have 1 Evo equipped, you can pay 3 to attack with it for 2 damage. Once you have 2, it's discounted by 2, so you can pay 1 resource to attack for 2 damage. Then it's not bad. At 3 Evos, it gets Go Again, so it's quite good at that point because it's 1 resource for 2 Go Again on a weapon. That's pretty good. And then at 4, it's very, very good. It's 3 damage, it gets +1, so it's 3 Go Again. And that's probably the strongest weapon or one of the strongest weapons in the game when you're at 4. So like I said, this deck really it's actually quite a weak deck until you get to 4 Evos. In my testing, I think the deck's strong, but I don't think it's like a tier 1 deck at the moment. Unless someone finds another way to break it, I would say it's maybe a tier 2 deck or maybe even a tier 3 deck. It's just a little slow at getting to those 4 Evos, and if we can get it a bit faster and efficiently, then it might be good because this deck is really busted once you're at the full 4 Evos. But getting all your equipment replaced takes a while. So the 2 Evo sets we're playing, every Teklovossen deck is going to play this. You've got these very strong Majestics. They're blues, which is really nice. They're also 3 blocks, which is really nice. and they have the most synergy with the rest of his deck. So there's really no reason not to play 3 of every blue. They're just some solid blues. They all have really strong effects where if they've transformed from another Evo, so it doesn't work when they transform from the base, but from another Evo or into a different Evo, you get some effect. They also block for 3 with temper, so they can block for 3 and then 2. You're not going to want to block with them usually when they're at 1 because they'll be destroyed and you don't want to lose your arms or any other equipment piece. But the effects when they enter is also quite good, especially Steel Soul Memory. If it transforms from or into an Evo with a different name, you get +1 intellect. So you will, until end of turn, I should say. So you will get 5 cards at the end of your turn. Just make sure you transform on your turn, because if you do it on your opponent's, the 5 intellect until end of turn doesn't matter. You don't draw up then. So very good, though, when you do it. So those are the main Evos, and these also have an effect where if you transform into a hero, it triggers twice. And we have this very strong card called Singularity that transforms into this crazy demi-hero. You're not going to get this off every game. You don't have to get this off to win, but it is very strong when you do get it off, and it gets an extra bonus when you transform from those Majestic Evos. And then the other base Evos we're playing are these Sentry equipment. We have 2 of each. And these are pretty basic. They are 2 blocks, red, and they cost 2. And then they block for 2 with Battle Worn, and then also they'll block for 1. The nice thing here is you can use all of the block, the 2 and then the 1, because with Battle Worn they're stuck around. So usually you want to transform into these first, because then you will get the trigger when you transform the Evo Steel Souls, because these have to transform, like I said, from another Evo, not from a base. So you'll usually want to get these Sentries down first. They're also cheaper, so it's a bit faster. And you can get to 4 Evos quicker, and then you can upgrade to the Steel Souls after. That's kind of the basic game plan, and it's quite strong overall. It's a very consistent game plan, and the best way to get them is by getting them for free. And the way we do that is by boosting. You remember, we can play our Evos from our Banish Zone, so there's a few ways we do that. We're playing not a ton, but a lot of the best boost cards. We're playing all of the original boost cards with 0 to 60. That's just a 0 for 4. Zipper Hit, the 1 for 5, and Throttle, the 2 for 6. These are all really solid boost cards. They're the most efficient ones. And when you boost any of your Evos, it's basically like drawing a card. So it makes them very, very, very good. We're also playing the Sprocket Rockets. These are, if you hit an Evo, they get +1. So they're basically 3 more copies of 0 to 60. And 0 for 3 go again. If you don't hit, it's still not the end of the world. The only other boost card here is the new Majestic Twin Drive. This lets you boost twice, which is really good because if you hit Evos both times, you kind of drew 2 cards off of that, which is insane. You're only losing 1 power from this. From Throttle, it's a 2 for 5 instead of a 2 for 6. But being able to boost twice is super nice. If you're also playing any non-Mechanologist cards, which we are playing 1 non-Mechanologist card, you can even miss on one of these, and then you'll still get the go again because the other boosts will hit. So it's nice there as well. You have some insurance in case one of the boosts miss, but if you hit Evos both times, this card's just absolutely insane. So those are our boost cards we're playing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're playing 15, I think. So not a ton, but a fourth of the deck is boost cards, so still good enough to get some banishes. Then we're also playing these Junkyard Dogs. In general, I don't think the scrap cards are very good. But Junkyard Dog, when you scrap, it gets +1, so it's a 3 for 7, which isn't bad. Scrap lets you banish an item or equipment from your graveyard, so you can banish one of your Evos that are in your graveyard, and then you'll be able to play it from that banish zone. So it's basically a 3 for 7 that draws you a card. It's pretty good. It's probably one of the only scrap cards I'll really consider playing. We're playing 3 reds and 2 blues as well. And then the payoff cards are the last reds we have to really get into here. We've got quite a few, but the biggest ones are these 2 big Majestics, Terminator Tank and War Machine. So both of these cards are pretty insane. They start out pretty bad. They're 6 resources for 6 damage, very bad. But after 1 Evo, they have an on hit. This one says when it hits, destroy a hero, or when it hits a hero, they discard a card. The other one says destroy all cards in their arsenal. And then the other effects are all the same. So War Machine destroys all cards in the arsenal. Terminator Tank discards a card. After 2 Evos are equipped, costs 3 less. So now it's a 3 for 6, which is playable. When you have 3 or more, it gets overpower, so they can only block with 1 action card. Then it's pretty good. 3 for 6 overpower with a destroy all cards in arsenal or discard a card. And then at 4, it gets +3. So it's 3 for 9 overpower, which is one of the strongest cards in the game. You really want to wait till you're at 4 Evos. And like I said, once this deck is at 4 Evos, it's probably the strongest deck in the game or one of them. The problem is you're a pretty weak deck until you get there. You're not very good. Most of the stuff you're doing is weaker than the average Flesh and Blood deck. You're just really trying to get to those 4 Evos, and then you're going to be in a great spot. So Terminator Tank, War Machine, these are your huge payoffs. Once you get to them, these are your strongest cards. Just absolutely insane to go for 3 for 9 overpower with a discard or destroy arsenal effect. Those are very, very good. Next, we've got 1 Tome of Fjendal. This is our only non-mech card. I like this because we do have a pretty weak early game, so we gain some life, and also we can actually gain the action point. So I found that it's a good way to use the Cogworks base legs. You can use that resource, remove the steam counter, and gain the action point. I usually try to wait to transform the legs last if I can, because we hopefully can draw and arsenal that Tome of Fjendal first, and then we can do a pretty big turn by boosting, pitching a card to get the action point and play Tome. If we got to keep all our cards, that'll gain us, should gain us about 4 life. 4 life, and we'll have another big hand to keep going. It's quite strong. You can usually, with those extra 4 cards, play more attacks, transform into more Evos. It's pretty good. I really like it, especially because we get to actually use that action point from Cogworks base legs. The other option is you could consider playing some Command and Conquers, just a few of them, maybe 2, or I don't know if I would go to 3. And if you boost them by accident, you can use the Cogworks as like insurance, because it's an instant. If you've boosted already and then you play that Command and Conquer, or if you boost and hit the Command and Conquer, off of the boost, you can pay a resource to get your action point back. So you can also use it like that, but I wanted to use it a bit more aggressively with the Tome of Fjendal, and I found it quite strong. The only blues we haven't mentioned are a few of these. These are all payoffs later in the game, second cycle, for having 4 Evos. Liquid Cooled Mayhem costs 1 less for each Evo, so it starts at 4, but when you have all 4 Evos, it costs 0, so it's going to be a 0 for 4, quite good. Mechanical Strength gets +1, or plus X, I should say, where X is the number of Evos, so if you have 4 Evos, it's getting +4, then it's a 3 for 7, which is pretty good on a blue. Meganetic Protocol, it makes them defend with X equipment they control with -1 counters, where X is the number of Evos they have equipped. So it's a 3 for 5. That's hopefully going to steal some of your opponent's equipment, blowing them up if you have a bunch of Evos. And Steel Street Enforcement is a really strong Majestic. It's a block card, which is a pretty new card from Bright Lights. It gets +X block, where X is the number of Evos you have equipped. So it starts out pretty weak at 1 block, but by the time you have 4 Evos, this is a blue that blocks for 5, which is really, really good. So that is the main deck. I found it quite strong. Like I said, I feel like one of the weaker Flesh and Blood decks. I do feel like I'm really, really behind in the first, 4 or 5 turns of the game. You start out with no equipment block at all, so you can't, you have to, if you're blocking on hits, it's all from hand. You have a weapon that starts off literally not being able to attack. So you're starting off quite weak, but then you build up, and he's kind of a reverse Flesh and Blood deck. Flesh and Blood decks usually get weaker over time. They have their equipment, they block with it, they lose it. They have cards, it's going to get harder and harder, but it gets easier and easier for Teklo. It's definitely the opposite of a traditional Flesh and Blood deck. Once you get to 4 Evos, you have a 1 for 3 go again weapon. That's insane. You have 3 for 9 with overpower on hits that are crazy. And then you can even, use Singularity, which costs 6. You transform your weapon, your hero, and all 4 of your Evos into this insane demi-hero that attacks for 6. It blocks for 6 with Battle Worn. It costs 3 to attack with, and then it attacks for that 6. They have to discard a card. I'm not going to go over all this because it's a lot, but Singularity is an insanely strong card. But like I said, you don't have to have that. I honestly, the card doesn't work yet in Talishar, so I haven't resolved it. But I don't feel like I've needed it on the games I win. It's kind of a win more card. It's a 3 block, so it's not the worst, and often you're just going to end up boosting it away. But it's really good if the game goes really slow. It's a bit of a grindy game. You can use this just to close it out. Easy win right there. So it's kind of your backup card. I'm not going to go over the sideboard too much because this deck's, like I said, I'm still kind of figuring it out. I don't know what's good or not. this deck loses really hard to anything that deals arcane damage at the moment because there's no arcane barrier in the main deck. So I have the Visiertronic and Achilles in the sideboard. You would have to take a lot out when you do that because you would want to take out everything that cares about having the 4 Evos, so like the 3 War Machines and the 3 Terminator tanks, and then probably the Singularity, so that's like 7 cards. And then probably the Evos that you're taking out too, which is the 2 head and then the 2 legs. So you're taking out so many cards, I don't know how it would work. I'm not really sure, but that would be a different game plan. Right now it's pretty weak into anything with arcane damage, but that's the deck. I've really been enjoying it. I think this is a great place to start. There's probably some optimizations to make still, but honestly, the deck feels very strong once you get the 4 Evo set up. The problem is living that long. I've definitely died before I get to 4 Evos, or at least been almost dead, under 10 life. But if you get lucky with your boosts, you're hitting them really fast. If you're able to go first and you draw Evos and you can play even up to 2 Evos on turn 0, you can feel way ahead. I do want to comment on the other version that a lot of people are playing. I have this kind of control Teklovossen deck. This is mostly using scrap cards that let you banish the equipments from your graveyard to play them. And so we have the Junkyard Dog, stuff like Scrap Prospector, Scrap Trader, and the idea here is to block with the Evos first. It is a more defensive deck. You're blocking with them, and then you're using scrap cards to transform into them for cheap. To be honest, this deck has felt way too slow. It's even slower than the boost version because you have to wait to draw the equipment and then block with it. It just takes forever, and it doesn't feel like you're any stronger than the boost version. You're just a slow boost version. I don't feel like I'm doing anything extra that the boost isn't doing. This deck's insane. I mean, imagine I pitch to play Twin Driver and I boost 2 of my Evos. I've just gotten those 2 for free, where the control deck would have had to draw them and then block with them and then play a scrap card. This deck is like, oh, I'm just going to pitch my blue, play Twin Driver, and I draw 2. Very, very good. It is a little roll of the dice. You have to boost the right cards. If I'm boosting all my other red boost cards and I'm boosting away my War Machines and my Terminator tanks, I'm going to be quite sad because I really want to hit those cards later in the game and not hit them off boost. But if I'm boosting all my Evos, I feel like I'm going to win a lot of those games where I boost the Evos. So it's kind of a rundown of Teklovossen. I hope it gets you a good start into the hero. I think he has a lot of potential. His hero ability is one of the most pushed hero abilities we've seen. Letting you play from Banished is quite strong for modern day Flesh and Blood. And we just need to figure out a way. I think once people have found out how to survive until 4 Evos, once you're at 4 Evos, you're by far the strongest hero, like almost certainly. So it's really just getting to 4 Evos. And if we can do that consistently without dying and still being at a somewhat healthy life total, you're going to win a lot of your games of Flesh and Blood. So have fun playing him. Leave some comments below. I would love to see some discussion about the hero because he is so new. A lot of people want to talk about what their decks look like. Post your lists, anything like that. I would love to see them. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.